This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good morning, Rabbi. So you're ready, Shloshim Yom Kayim Achag. Can't let grass grow between your toes. We have to start to learn about Inyonei Pesach. And the Gemara says in Kedushin that when Klal Yisrael entered Eretz Yisrael, they had a little bit of a dilemma in terms of Matzah. And that is, we know you can't eat the new grain until when? Until you bring the carbon omer on the second day of Pesach. Okay? Well, if you can't bring the omer until the second day of Pesach, and that matters the new grain, how they eat matzah on the first day of Pesach? You can't eat the new grain until the carbon is brought on the second day. Yeah? Mm-hmm. So the answer is they didn't eat it. They couldn't eat it. What are they going to do? It would be an avera to eat the grain, to eat matzah, because it's chadash. There's an isur d'oraisa of chadash. The Gemara Taka says in Kedushin on Lamed Zayin Amud Beis, Ikrav Omer, you be makrav the Omer, v'hadar achal, and then you eat the matzah. Hainu d'chsev, v'yochlu me'avar oretz. They ate the produce of the land mimachras haPesach, the day after Pesach. Mimachras haPesach achal, they ate the day after. Me'ikar la'achal, alma ikrav Omer. So we see from here, you're makrav the Omer v'hadar achal, and only then you could eat matzah. What do you do every year? Every year you eat matzah from yashan, from the old produce. But the first year they walked in, they had no yashan, they only had chadash, they couldn't eat matzah. Yeah? Everyone understand? Okay. Tosfos brings down the question of the Yerushalmi. And that is a very simple question. Why don't you say, asay dechalois asay? The mitzvah asay of matzah should push off the yisur lav of chadash. Says Tosfos, B'Yerushalmi maksha, lama lo achlu matzah mechadash. Why didn't they eat matzah from chadash? V'yavay asay de ve'erav teichel matzos, v'yirchalois asay de chadash. Yeah, you get the question? Why don't we say asay de chalois? So the Yerushalmi gives two answers. Number one, eating matzah, that mitzvah asay was given before the Torah was given. The lav of chadash was given after the Torah was given. And a mitzvah d'oraisa that was given before the Torah is a little bit weaker than a mitzvah d'oraisa that was given after the Torah was given. And ein asay the kodim hadibur madche lois asay alachar hadibur. It says like this: ein asay the kodim hadibur derech lois da'achar hadibur. Okay, that's the first answer. Matzah is kodim hadibur, and chadash is la'achar hadibur. Ein asay the kodim hadibur derech lois da'achar hadibur. Inami or yesh leimer. The gezerah kezayis rishon atu kezayis sheni. Avado, you're allowed to eat matzah. They ate a kezayis matzah. But are you allowed to eat two kezayis? The second kezayis is not a mitzvah anymore. So the second kezayis, all you get is the avera of chadash. So since you can't eat the second kezayis, there's a gezerah not to eat the first kezayis atu the second kezayis. In other words, you're right, asay the chalois asay, but that would only help for the first kezayis with which you're mekayim the mitzvah of matzah. The second kezayis you already fulfilled the mitzvah. So therefore we say, don't eat the first kezayis lest you come to eat the second kezayis.
I think about before the dibur, is that operative even today? Or everything now, because of the Mishnah, so you don't have to worry about that anymore?
No. It was repeated at Sinai, but there's an idea that whatever was given even the first time before Matan Torah doesn't have the same force as something that was given l'achar dibur. In terms of, not practically, the only difference it would make is when it comes to asay d'chalois asay.
So look what happened at like Morosh, some
Shabbos.
Yeah, all these heavy mitzvahs.
Yeah, fine. Yeah, it's just that we don't say asay d'chalois asay was if the asay was given kaidem hadibur.
So if they have given Shabbos and Mor, right? So
yeah, so Shabbos considered kaidem hadibur. So you mean, is there any Shabbos, does the asay of Shabbos push off anything? I don't know if there's anything I don't know if there's any practicality of it. Okay, what we're going to focus on is the kasha of Tosfos, the kasha of the Yerushalmi. Why don't we say the asay of achilas matzah pushes off the lav of isur chadash? Got the kasha? Why don't we say asay d'chalois asay? Yeah, Rabbi Glatstein! The adlo yada is over. Yeah? So you got the question? The question is, why don't we say asay d'chalois asay? Okay, so I'm going to tell you Gemara Pesachim. Daf Lamed Hey. Look at number 3. Tana kusmin. No, what's kusmin? Spelled min chitin. Is a type of wheat. Shibai l'shual, oats, b'shifain, rye, min sa'irin are a type of barley. Kusmin golva, Kusmin is called Gulba, Shifon, Dishra, Rai is called Dishra, Shiba, Shual, Shavili, Tala. Whatever, it doesn't matter. What's the relevance? The Indian Truma, that you don't take one species off the other. So we have to categorize what's wheat and what's barley. By the way, these are the Chamesh Mine Dagan. Chita, Chitim, Sa'irim, Kusmin, Shifain, Shibayla Shual. Those are the Chameshas Mine Dagan, the 5 types of grain.
Kusmin is what again?
And what's
Spelt.
Kusmin?
Kusmin is spelt. Right? Like they have in Aaron's, they have a special freezer of just spelt products for people, or gluten-free. Yeah? So spelt. Shiur Shual is oats. And Shifain is rye. Okay. But, says the Gemara, these are the 5 things you can make matzah out of. But hani in oirez, what's oirez? Rice. V'doichen and millet, lai. Can't make matzah out of millet. Millet. It's a type of grain.
Millet was fish.
No, it's a type of grain. But not one of the 5 categories. So, you can make matzah out of the chamesh minei dagan, but not out of rice and not out of millet. Why not? Mina hani mili, Amar Rav Shimon Lakish, v'chein tanu v'Rishma, v'chein tanu v'Rav Lazar ben Yaakov, Amar Kra, lo yisaychal alav chametz, lo yisaychal alav chametz, don't eat chametz, shevas yamim taychal alav matzah, right? Don't eat chametz, eat matzah. From there we learn, Tvarim ha'abal midei chimotz adam yatzu midei chavasa b'matzah, yatzu elu shein bal midei chimotz. Only something that could become chametz are you allowed to make matzah out of. But something that can't ferment, you can't make matzah out of. So, wheat, spelt, rye, oats, and
Kusmin, spelt.
And spelt, and rye, and oats, and wheat, you can make matzah out of. The other stuff you can't make matzah out of. Why not? Not rye. Rice and milk you can't make matzah out of. Elo lidei sichan, because those 2 things, they don't ferment, but rather what do? They spoil. So you can only make matzah out of something that ferments and not something that spoils. So the drasha is, this is step 1, get the drasha.
Why do we not eat rice and swine and do?
Why? It's a matter of custom. It's only minhag. Whether it's considered, it's only minhag. But Rabbi, no. Now we're talking about making matzah. You can only make matzah out of something that could become chametz, because the pasuk says, "Lo yisaychal alav chametz, shivas yamim tachal alav matzah." Okay, that's the drasha. The Gemara on Lamed Hey Amud Beis takes it to the next step. The same way you cannot make matzah out of something that can't become chametz. In other words, only something that's subject to the Isser Chametz could you fulfill the mitzvah matzah. So too, the Gemara says a big chiddush. Only something that is actually Asr because of Chametz, only something that the Isser of Chametz could be Chala on, could you be Yotzei matzah with, but something that the Isser of Chametz is not Chala on, you can't be Yotzei matzah with. For example, Tevel. Something which Truma wasn't hufrash, or something that Trumas Meiser wasn't separated, or let's say something that Meiser wasn't separated, so you can't be Yotzei matzah with it. Why not? You hear? Listen to this. Because it's something that's Asr already. The Yisr Chametz is not Chalan. Why not? Because Ein Yisr Chalal Yisr. So Memela, the same way you could only make matzah out of something that could become chametz, you could only make matzah out of something that the isser of chametz could be chalan, and not something that was asr anyway. Okay? What? Oh, very good. Oh, good, David. But that's where we're going. Okay? So the Gemara says that, look at number 4. Tana Rabbana. Yachol yotzi adam yidei chavasai b'tevel. I would think a person could be fulfilled his tiyuv with tevel. Shaloi niskan, that was not separated. So Gemara says, kol tevel nami haloi niskan. Every tevel was not corrected. What do you mean tevel she'enoi niskan? What do you mean tevel that was not niskan? Right, the Gemara says, a person could be yotzi his chiyuv with tevel shaloi niskan. The Gemara says, all tevel was loi niskan. Ela b'tevel shaloi niskan called sarchoi. even tevel that was not completely fixed, shenat lo mimenu truma gedala. Let's say truma gedala was taken off. V'lo not lo mimenu trumas ma'aser, and trumas ma'aser was not taken off. Or ma'aser rishon. Let's say ma'aser rishon was hofrash. V'lo ma'aser sheni. Or even if not ma'aser ani. Minayin. How do I know? Listen carefully. Talmud loymar lo soichal alav chametz. Don't eat chametz. Mi she'isuroi misham bal toichal alav chametz. Yatzazeh she'en isuroi misham bal toichal chametz. Ela misham bal toichal tevel. Right? This food that's tevel is not otzur misham chametz. It's otzur misham tevel. So therefore, anything that's not osur, that cannot become osur mishum chametz, you cannot fulfill the mitzvah of achilas matzah. Because the same way, we have the drasha on Amud Aleph, that only something that could boli dechimus, you could be yosei matzah, also something that the isur of chametz could be chalan. The Gemara asks, so what happened to the isur chametz? Where did the isur chametz go? The Gemara says, v'isur the chametz lahechan azal, Rav Sheshes, hamani Rav Shimni, the amra ein isur chala usur. So Rav David's asking, and this is the kasha, I don't think we ever did a piece on the Sefer, of Rabbi Itzele Ponovezher. Rabbi Itzele Ponovezher, Rabbi Yitzchak Yaakov Rabinowitz, they've talked about Avbezin of Ponovich in the Sefer Zecher Yitzchak. If you could only be yotzei the mitzvah of matzah with something that the Yisra of Chametz could be chalan, and the Gemara on Lamed Hamad Beis says the Yisra of Chametz is not chalan tevel because ein Yisra chalal Yisra, then what's the Yushalmi and Tosfos asking? Then we should say asay doichalois asay, that the asay of matzah should push off the lav of chadash. Well, if there's a lav of chadash, there is no asay of matzah. Why? Because you can't be yotzei the mitzvah of matzah with something which is asur mishum chadash. Because if it's asur mishum chadash, the isur of chametz can't be chal on it. And if the isur of chametz can't be chal on it, you can't be mekayim the mitzvah of matzah with it. The same way the Gemara says you can't be mekayim matzah with tevel, then you shouldn't be able to mekayim matzah with chadash. If you can't be mekayim matzah with chadash, what's Tosfos quoting the Yushalmi's kasha that we should say asay doichalois asay, there's no asay of matzah b'makom chadash. This is the kasha of Rabbi Itzele Ponovezher. So when you go home today, you don't want to know. No, what do you learn? The kasha of Itzele Ponovezher. Yeah, this is kasha number 5. On the third line, he quotes Tosfos, and then he says, "Chvar tamu al zeharei kaim alon b'psachim lamed hem beis dein yotzim b'matzah shel tevel mishum lekos she'enu b'val toichal chametz enu b'toichal matzah v'isur chametz loichal al isur tevel v'imkein hachanami matzah shel chadash psula l'mitzvah v'loi mahani kan asay doichalois asay." Now the next 3 lines I don't really get, so I'm going to skip it. Okay, so that's his kasha. That's his kasha. And let me tell you his tarets. Says Rabbi Itzele Ponovezher, there are 2 dinim in matzah. One din in matzah is the etzem chiyuv of achilas matzah, the mitzvah of ba'erev teichlu matzahs, the mitzvah of al matzahs umram yechluhu. Excuse me, there are 2 mitzvahs. One is ba'erev teichlu matzahs. What's the mitzvah of ba'erev teichlu matzahs? You have a chiyuv to eat matzah the night of Pesach. It's an independent chiyuv. It's deraisa. It has no connection at all with achilas korban Pesach. It's an independent chiyuv. Even bisman hazeh, when we don't have achilas korban Pesach, there's still a mitzvah of achilas matzah. But there's another mitzvah which is tied to the korban Pesach, like the pasuk says, "Al matzah sumroim yichlu." Says Rabbi Itzele Ponovezher a gavaldige chiddush. The aspect of matzah which is tied to Pesach there's no limitation that it has to be something that could become chametz or it could become asur mishum chametz v'haraya. On Pesach Sheni, there's no mitzvah of ba'erev teichlu matzah. It's an independent chiyuv of matzah. There is a mitzvah of eating the matzah with the korban Pesach, right? Yeah? Because there it also says al matzah simram yechlu. And halacha is on Pesach Sheni you can have chametz right there. So that means the achilas matzah that's connected to korban Pesach, there are no limitations of chametz regarding that achilas matzah. Mamela comes Rabbi Itzele Ponovezher and he says like this: when it comes to ba'erev toichlu matzah, that mitzvah of matzah has to be something that what is able to become chametz. is something that the Isser Chametz could be chal on. Memela, the Gemara says, you can't be Itzele the mitzvah of Erev Tochlu Matzahs with Tevel, because that matzah, the Isser Chametz, cannot be chal on. But there's another mitzvah of Achilas Matzah, and that is Al Matzah Simar Yechlu, and that mitzvah of Achilas Matzah is not linked to Chametz. The Haraya Pesach Sheni, when you have that mitzvah of eating matzah with the Korban Pesach, you're allowed to eat Chametz. That mitzvah does not have to be matzah that could become chametz. It does not have to be matzah that the Isser Chametz has to be chalan. And that's Tosfos' kasha of why don't we say asay doichalois asay, the asay of al matzah simroim yechluhu, which is not linked to the Isser of chametz, should come and push off the Isser of chadash. So what do you mean? There's no mitzvah asay in that case, because it's not the Isser of matzah is not chal on it. The Isser of Chametz is not chal on it. She says, no, that mitzvah of Al Matzah Simar Mechlu is not governed by the Dinei Chametz. So there are two dinim in matzah. One is an independent chiyuv of Ba'erev Tochel Matzahs, which is linked to the Isser Chametz, and one is Al Matzah Simar Mechlu, which is not linked to the Isser of Chametz. Okay?
That'd be today like the sandwich, no? What we do today is
that's zecher to a zecher to the Matzah Simar Mechlu linked to the Korban Pesach.
So that would be equivalent. There's two different mitzvahs.
Two different mitzvahs.
The Seder is the mitzvah, Chiyuv is whatever it is.
Which is not linked to the
Korban
Pesach.
Later on the Seder, when you do the sandwich,
that's a zecher to the other aspect of the mitzvah.
We'll tie to that concept.
Yeah, so look, let's read it inside.
What have you solved it? Because you do have a mitzvah to eat matzah, right?
So
that matzah you can't eat because of the chayil. He's only saying that the second matzah.
So no, but what's Tosfos' kasha? Tosfos' kasha is not let the mitzvah of Erev Tochlu Matzahs push off the Isser of Chadash, because the mitzvah of Erev Tochlu Matzahs, there is no mitzvah of Erev Tochlu Matzahs over here, because the mitzvah of Erev Tochlu Matzahs is only with matzah that the Isser of Chametz is chalan. But what Tosfos is asking is that the mitzvah d'oraisa of matzah linked to the Korban Pesach of Al Matzah Simar Mechluhu, that aspect of matzah is not. That aspect of matzah does not have to be able to become chametz, and that mitzvah should push off the lav of chadash.
Yeah, but wasn't he trying to answer the question about how did they eat the chiyuv of the matzah because of the omer?
No, the Gemara says they didn't eat the matzah. Tosfos asks they should have ate the matzah. Why? Hasei d'chalois hasei. So our kasha was, your kasha was, there is no asay, because the asay of matzah cannot be fulfilled if the Yisur of Chametz is not chal on it. So his chiddush is
okay, I got to the second matzah.
That the asay of Erev Tochel Matzah is not chal, but the asay of Matzah Mechluhu is chal. The problem with this approach is doesn't fit into the lashon of Tosfos, because if you look carefully, in the second line in Tosfos, number 2. Tosfos comes and says, let the asay of the Erev Tochel Matzah is push off. And that mitzvah is linked to the... Yeah, so it's a little bit of a shortcut with his approach. Look in number 5 in the second paragraph. V'nira, to be matzah ika shtei mitzvahs. Matzah is 2 mitzvahs. Mitzvahs ba'erev Tochel Matzahs, she etzem chayvas achilas matzah. U'mitzvahs ha'matzah simar mechlu, shezeh meklal chiyuva da'achilas psachim. One is Ba'erev Tochel Matzahs, and one is linked to the Korban Pesach. V'nira the Chumash kasav b'dinei matzah psula, all the various disqualifications of matzah, kugan lechem oini, v'necheles b'chal mashavos, upsol the tevel, all the various qualities that matzah has to be. Those qualities are only qualities in the mitzvah that's specific to the night of the Seder of Ba'erev Tochel Matzahs. Aval ma shetzarich lecha matzah ima Pesach mishum al matzah zman lozer kol matzah kshera. V'chein nira dehari b'Pesach Sheni, by Pesach Sheni, where there's a din of al matzah zman michlu, there's no Isser Chametz at all there. Very like a hasam Isser Chametz klal shel Chametz matzah ima b'bayis. V'mkein hu adin b'Pesach Rishon nami, you could eat matzah for the mitzvah of al matzah zman michlu, even if it's not matzah that the Isser of Chametz is chalan. Ulefizeh Yotzei, the Mishum Mitzvahs Al Matzah Simar comes out Then for the mitzvah, matzah simroim, gam matzah shel tevel v'chadash ksherois. You could use tevel. You could use chadash. The Gemara in Pesachim that says that you can't be yotze the chiyuv of matzah with tevel, it means you can't be yotze be'erev teichlu matzahs with tevel, but you could be yotze al matzah simroim mechlu with tevel. And you could say that's what the Yushalmi is asking. V'mkein yeshleim v'dezel sheparach b'Yushalmi amayloi achlu matzah klal. Why didn't they eat matzah at all? Harei mishum mitzvahs matzah simroim hayucham lechol matzah mechadash because of asay doicha lois asay. That's the chiddush of Rabbi Itzele Ponovezher. There are two dinim of matzahs. One is ba'erev teichlu matzahs, and one is al matzah simroim yechluhu. So you're going to go home today and say, "Nu, what you learn?" You say, "I learned big stuff, Rabbi Itzele Ponovezher." But then they're going to ask you, "But did you learn Reb Chaim al Rambam?" So we can't disappoint. So we have to learn the Reb Chaim also. Okay? And that is, I want you to look at the Rush in number 6. Okay, this is good. This is one of the most fertile lines of the Rush in Pesachim for all kinds of Torah. A very Lomdus piece, but you'll get it. Baruch Hashem, clear. Okay. Says the Rush, Tanya, Achlu demai yatsa, Achlu b'loy miskavein yatsa, Achlu l'chatzon yatsa. Let's say you ate your marar, half a kazayas, and then another half a kazayas. As long as you don't interrupt between the two half kazayasim kadei achilas pras, you're yotzei. So the Rosh wants to know, why do you have to eat a kazayas? Why can't you just eat a chatzi kazayas? Okay, we're talking about marar now. I know you'd rather talk about hamantashin and yayin, but don't worry, Mara comes along with Daled Kaisis, okay? So, you got it? We're talking about Mara. Bitter a greenson. Yeah? What? Does Mara need a kazayas? Does Mara need a kazayas? So the Rosh says you eat a half a kazayas, and don't be mafsik between the two half kazayasims b'chdei achilas pras. Why do you need a kazayas, says the Rosh? I'll tell you why I need a kazayas. Because what bracha do you make on Mara? Al achilas marar. And whenever you say achila,
you need a kazayas.
Mishum de mevarech al achilas marar tzarech sheyachal kazayas. Since you make a bracha on the marar, al achilas marar, you need a kazayas. De ein achila pachas mikazayas. So here, let's say the Rosh would walk into the room. So we all stand up for Rabbeinu Asher. And the Rosh would go say, "No, say of a Shiur, Mechaber." The Rosh would say, "The Rosh would say, Ma'av Rabbi say, Tyra Yidden, you need to eat a kazayas amar." Say, why? Because in the bracha you say al achilas marar, and achila has to be a kazayas. Got the Rosh? Comes along the Shagas Aryeh. Right? There's nothing like learning a Shagas Aryeh the day after Purim. Okay? You ready for this? This, by the way, on the second side is the Grach al Rambam. Excuse me. This is the Grach on Shas. The Chaim on Shas, Pesachim Kovches. He quotes the two kashas of the Shagas Aryeh. If you need to give a Shabbos Haggadah drasha, I'm giving you a head start. This is good Lomdus Torah. Okay? Again, you got the Rosh? Rabbi Yankel, why do you have to eat a kazayas of Mara? What's the source?
Because you eat the bracha.
The bracha, exactly. You hit the nail on the head, the bracha. Mishum de mevarchem al achilas mar ve'ein achila pachas mikazayas. Frek the Shagas Aryeh. Why does the Rosh have to say you need a kazayas? Because of the bracha. Is in marar iskash to matzah, and by matzah it says in the Torah, toichlu matzah is achila. So if you have to eat matzah, you have to eat marar. And if achila is a kazayas by matzah, then achila is carried over kazayas by marar. So what's the Rosh bring a raya from the bracha? He should bring a raya from the pasuk in Chumash. The pasuk says achila by matzah, and marar is iskash to matzah. So what's he darshaning on the nusach ha-bracha? Get the nusach bracha. There's a pasuk of achila by matzah, and marar is iskash.
That won't be the rabbanan. That would be the raisa hekish. So if it's from the bracha, they make a bracha. It's Mr. on the rabbanan. You're saying. So it's not A, B. It's even a higher level because it's a hekish from matzah. But the raisa bracha is only the whole thing is the rabbanan.
Yeah, right. Another to bring a raya from the nusach. Okay, here's a possibility. Yeah. Unless the fact that the nusach is as megala, the chachamim see that's the chiv of the haTorah, maybe. Okay, that's number one. Number two, you got the kasha. Why is the Rosh chepping with the nusach habracha? To bring a raya, the Torah says achila by matzah, and there's a hekish of marar to matzah. So let's read that question inside. That's question number one, the second line in Reb Chaim over Sefer Shagas Aryeh. Hiksha alav the kivan the iskash mar la matzah over matzah habein in kazayis by matzah in kazayis tichsev be lashon achila ba'erev teichlo matzah is imkein huadim v'mara. The same thing would be by mara. V'amai itzrich lahadim mevarchin al achilas mara. Why do I need to bring a raya from the lashon of the bracha of achila? This Rosh is right. Arvei psachim ois chaf hey. Question number two. Anyone here ever hear of meat? You know what meat is? Basar, flesh. And then there's something called chalav, milk. And you can't eat the two together. How much do you need to consume to violate the isra of basar v'chalav? What? You need a kazayas. How about klei hakaram? Klei hakaram. Same thing. Now, does it say anywhere in the Torah you're not to eat milk and meat? No. It says mai 3 times, one for bishul, one for achila, one for anah. So wait a second. How do you know you're not allowed to eat a kazayas? Where do we get the shir kazayas from? It doesn't even say you're not allowed to eat milk and meat. It just says you're not allowed to cook it, you're not allowed to cook it, you're not allowed to cook it 3 times. And from there we learn, don't cook, don't eat, don't get anah. The answer must be, that since the only way to violate eating is through achila, so achila is kazayas. The definition of achila is kazayas. Right? In other words, even if the Torah doesn't say explicitly eating, but if that's the only way to violate it, and any achila is kazayas. So the same way, when it comes to isurim, the only way to...
Rabbi, I'm very sorry, I'm bothering you. I find that somebody keys over there. I don't know who is this.
The same way, when it comes to isurim, the same way when it comes to isurim, it's only an isur kazayas. Okay? Rabbi, so you get it? The Torah doesn't say anywhere.
Put it in Facebook. This is a very, very expensive.
Okay, the same way, the isur of achila is kazayas, even though the Torah doesn't say achila, but if that's the way to violate it, right? You hear what he's saying? He's saying that you see from the fact that the isur achila basar chalav is the shir's kazayas shows that even though the Torah doesn't say achila explicitly, but if perforce the only way to violate it is through eating, it's kazayas. So by the same token, if you have a mitzvah and the only way to fulfill it is by consuming, it must be kazayas. So says the Shagas Aryeh, why does the Rosh again have to say that you know how we know you have to eat a kazayas of marar? Because of the bracha, because the bracha is al achilas marar. Forget the bracha. The only way to fulfill marar is you can't think about the marar. You can't rub the marar between your toes. You have to actually eat it. So we know whenever it says to eat, whenever the way to do something is eating, it's a kazayas. So these are, okay, you got the question? 2 questions of the Shagas Aryeh on the Rosh. The Rosh says, how do I know the shir mar is kazayas? From the Nusach HaBracha, number 1, what do you need a Nusach HaBracha for? It says achila by matzah and mar is hukash l'matzah. And number 2, even if it didn't say achila by matzah, the same way when it comes to isurim, any isur which you violate through consumption, the shir is achila. By the same token, any mitzvah which you fulfill through consumption, the shir should be kazayas. So the Rosh should say very simple. You know how you know you have to eat a kazayas amara? Because it's food, and any mitzvah which is connected to food, the shir is kazayas. Let's read the second question on the 4th line. Va'od kasha. Tinehida b'marar like siv lashon achila. True by marar doesn't say achila. V'hadich siv al matzah simram yechlu kaya pesach. It does say achila, not really. That's talking about the Korban Pesach. But abel hachazina and the isser basar b'chalav oiklei akaram. We know any Yisurim, whether it's milk and meat, whether it's mixed grapes, dafta like sibhu lashon achila, even though it doesn't say achila, that for that reason you're chayiv av shaloi kedarach hana asam, even if you ingest it in an abnormal way. In other words, let's say you eat basar b'chalav in an odd way. You take a funnel and you have someone pour it down the funnel into your throat. So you're not eating it normally. You get the avera. That's not a normal way to eat. The answer, it doesn't matter. The Torah doesn't say you can't eat it. The Torah says don't cook it, and since it says it twice, we learn out it means don't eat. But since the Torah didn't say explicitly don't eat, any way of eating, even abnormally, you're chayav for. In other words, I'll ask you a question. Why did the Torah say don't cook, don't cook, don't cook? Say don't cook, don't eat, don't get hana. Just say explicitly. The answer is, if it would say don't eat, then if you would consume it shaloi kederach, you would be pater. Now that the Torah didn't say don't eat, the Torah says don't cook, from which we learn out don't eat, then any manner of eating, even if it's abnormal, you're chayav for. Says the Reb Chaim, but bottom line is, the way you violate achila is by eating. So if that's the case, the shear has to be kazayis. Behind mishum, the kimin the isur achila, since the isur is eating, kachi halacha, the halacha mandates the achila he kazayis. Uvachas mezayis leichash v'achila. Ulakach after like civil lashon achila, even though it doesn't say achila, but kimin the isur hu achila, since the isur is eating, tzarch kazayis mishum shear achila. So too, by every mitzvah, whenever the mitzvah is achila, you need a kazayis, because less than a kazayis is not considered achila. So why does the Rosh say that the source that you need a kazayis by morar is the nusach habracha, even if the nusach habracha was al mitzvahs morar, we would still know you need a kazayis, because the way you do the mitzvahs by eating, and all eating is a kazayis. What's the proof all eating is kazayis? The proof is from milk and meat. Okay? So Rabbi said these are the two questions of the Shagas Aryeh on the Rosh. The Rosh says the source of kazayis by morar is the nusach habracha. In fact, the Shagas Aryeh, who cares about the nusach? Even without the nusach. Number one, it's compared to the matzah. And matzah, it says achila in the Torah. And number two, we know b'chlal, whenever there's a mitzvah of achila, it's a kazayis. Comes along Reb Chaim Brisker, and Reb Chaim Brisker answers both questions on Shagas Aryeh. And you know what the answer is? There are two dinim of matzah. One din is ba'erev toichlu matzos, which is not connected whatsoever to the achila of Karim Pesach. Let me ask, Bizman Azed, are you makar of Karim Pesach? No, I know people that are, but we're not makar of Karim Pesach today. Yeah, we do not offer. We can't go to the Har HaBayis. We do not offer the Karim Pesach today. So is the Chi of Matzah doiraisa? The Chi of Matzah is still doiraisa. Why? Because ba'erev toichlu matzah, there's an independent chiyuv of achilas matzah which is not connected to the Karim Pesach. There's another mitzvah of matzah which is connected to the Karim Pesach, and that is al matzah sumroi merchu. Is mar b'zman hazeh d'oraisa or d'rabanan? D'rabanan. Why? Because there's no independent chiyuv to eat maror.
It's tied to
the mitzvah of maror is only connected to the Karim Pesach, and since we don't have a Karim Pesach b'zman hazeh, we don't have a maror d'oraisa b'zman hazeh. So matzah is independent and connected, and maror is only connected, and that's why maror b'zman hazeh is d'rabanan. Okay? So that's your kasha. The mitzvah of eating matzah and maror with the Karim Pesach. What's the shiur? How much do you have to eat? So what do you mean? Like all mitzvahs that are dependent on achila, the shiur is what? Kazayis. Now, do you have to eat a kazayis of each one, or a kazayis together? Says Reb Chaim, the Torah just says eat, Karim Pesach, al matzos umra mechu. So the shiur is a kazayis for all three items together. That means matzah less than a kazayis, maror less than a kazayis, Karim Pesach less than a kazayis. Says Reb Chaim, There are two mitzvahs of matzah. One is an independent chiyuv of matzah, and that independent chiyuv of matzah, you have to eat a kazayas of matzah because it's not connected to anything else. Then there's a mitzvah of matzah to eat with the korban pesach, and that matzah is a kazayas altogether. So when maror is iskash to matzah, it's iskash to a matzah that there's no kazayas on that matzah. When we say maror is compared to matzah, the maror over there is compared to the matzah that's eaten with the korban pesach. Matzah eaten with the korban pesach doesn't have to be kazayas. So mamela, the maror that it's iskash to also doesn't have to be a kazayas. That's why the Rosh can't say, I'll bring you a raya, maror has to be kazayas, because it's compared to matzah. Matzah doesn't have to be kazayas. It's the independent chiyuv of matzah that has to be kazayas, and that is not iskash to maror. The matzah that's iskash to maror is the matzah eaten with the korban pesach, and that taka doesn't have to be a kazayas. By basar b'chalav, when the Torah says don't eat basar b'chalav, you're right. The isser achila, there is an isser kazayas, because there's an independent isser of don't eat milk and meat. That independent isser is a kazayas. But here, when I have a mitzvah of maror, there's no independent mitzvah of maror. The mitzvah of maror is eat it together with the korban pesach. Eat it together with the korban pesach. That maror that's eating the korban pesach, the same way the matzah doesn't have to be kazayas, the maror doesn't have to be kazayas. So why, says the Rosh, bisman hazeh, we're eating a kazayas of maror? The answer is because since the nusach habracha, the only proof that you have to eat a kazayas is from the nusach habracha that says, Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu Machilam Asher Kedushanim Zezuzanu Al Achilas Maror. Since the nusach habracha is achila, must be kazayas. We have no raya from the fact. Every mitzvah is a kazayas just like every isser is a kazayas. No, every isser is a kazayas because there the isser stands by itself. But the mitzvah of maror over here is linked to other foods, so it's in the combination it's kazayas. But by itself, mehechi teisi, it's kazayas. That's Reb Chaim's answer to the Shagas Aryeh's kasha. Again, he's differentiating between the matzah of the erev teichel matzos and the matzah of al matzos amroim yechlu.
The same thing like the Ponovezher, right? The same thing, but he used to just get around the union of Chodesh, the same chakira, same.
Very similar, right?
Similar, no?
Very similar. Itzele Ponovezher is saying the mitzvah of the erev teichel matzah is. That mitzvah is qualified and quantified by it has to be something that could become chametz. It has to be something that the isur chametz is chalan. And the mitzvah of amatzas merchlu is not governed by the laws of chametz. Rav Chaim is saying also, barav techlu matzos, that is limited. That has qualifications. It has to be kazayas. It doesn't have to be kazayas. Right? The same trick. Very, very similar trick.
Ramifications.
Right.
Whether kazayas or it's chodesh as a din.
Right. Okay. Now we'll end with. I want to tell you one more illustration of the two dinim of matzahs, and that is the Nesivus. Right, we spoke him out a lot on his commentary on Megillas Esther, Megillas Asarim. So he also wrote a very important commentary on the Haggadah Ma'aseh Nisim, and on the stanza Matzah zu she'anu oichel mishama. What do we say? We eat matzah because we didn't have enough time to let our bread rise. Shalai hispig l'tzekim l'tzekes, v'shal yachlu l'hismameya. In fact, in a Sivis, we eat matzah because we didn't have time for our bread to rise. We ate matzah 210 years in Mitzrayim before we were leaving. So how could the Haggadah say the reason for matzah is we didn't have time for the bread to rise? We've been eating matzah for 210 years.
Matzah again.
Says the Nesivus, Shnei Dinei Matzah. There's a matzah of Shivas Yomim. Now, this is a new trick. There's a mitzvah of Erev Teichlu Matzahs, and there's a mitzvah of Shivas Yomim Teichel Matzahs. There's a special mitzvah of Achilas Matzah Leil Seder, and then there's a mitzvah of eating matzah for 7 days. What's the difference? Like this. The mitzvah Leil Seder Matzah Zu, tonight's matzah Shanoichem. Why? That's because there was a one-time event where we didn't have time to let our bread rise, and we were on the way out. We didn't need to be eating the same old bad bread that we've been eating the last 210 years because now we're free. So why do we eat matzah tonight? That matzah is to commemorate the fact that one time on our way out we didn't have time for the bread to rise. One night Keneged one occurrence. But why were Chazal Koveya? Why did the Torah establish 7 days to eat matzah, and 7 days occupies the whole week? That corresponds to a long period of time. That taka corresponds to the 210 years of Lechem Oini in Mitzrayim. For 210 years we ate the poor man's bread of affliction. To commemorate that, we eat matzah for 7 days. So Ba'erev Toichlu Matzah is because we didn't have time to let our bread rise. And the mitzvah of Shivas Yomim Toichel Matzos, that corresponds to the Lechem Oini of 210 years in Mitzrayim. And with this begins our preparation for Pesach. Haba Aleinu L'Taiva.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.